Hey guys, Dib the Awesome here to give you yet another Monster Legends Guides where we talk about monsters' moves, rune sets, partners, all that jazz. Today we are taking a look at Gelotron, the latest, newest monster to be added into the game as of the time of recording this particular video. He's the latest, newest maze monster. In fact, he's the only new one. Like more often than not, the SP would make two at a time or three. Nah, it's just your boy Gelotron for this one. Now, this monster has been pronounced two ways, Gelotron, and I've been, in the terms of recording this video, Gelotron, because, Jello, the first term, people calling it Gelotron, well, J is a J, that sound is J, Jello. It would have to be Gelo, Jello. But no, it's spelled with a G. So I'm going to be pronouncing it Gelotron uh, for the purpose of this video. It's just how I personally see how it's pronounced. If it was with a J, obviously, I'd say Gelotron. I'm not picking on anyone for that. I even said Gelotron a few times myself. But for this video and just my future special video, I'm going to call him Gelotron because that's just how I pronounce it. Gel. Gelotron. Speaking of which, this guy has a fantastic name. Love the name of this monster. Gelotron. Gelotron. Pretty good, catchy name. It's really cool. And, yeah, today we're going to talk about him. So, Gelotron has the power of 3,498. Pretty stellar power, if we're going to be honest here. Really, really good, above the gospel power. Not as high as people would probably want. A lot of people are kind of been spoiled lately. They've been getting the old spoil treatment in terms of damage dealers, like over 500, like 3,000, like 598, even to the 600s. But this is still a workable number. I don't think it's too big of a deal. I think people are just a little tad bit spoiled in terms of base numbers nowadays, but this works. This is workable. This is a workable number as long as it goes over 465 in terms of a damage dealer. You can run it as a damage dealer. Okay. Of course, you gotta also consider the base damage of moves. But if you have the 465, usually that means they have acceptable base damage. Life 39,207. This thing is a rock, and it's a magic monster of all things too. So that's interesting. It's been a while since we have an old magic tank added to the game, and this is this has a lot of life. 39k is nothing to spit at. And we're gonna get into the one second. Wait 1 second. Words. We're going to get into the reason why this is really, really good in a second, or at least he has something very special that kind of helps him with the this whole life aspect. It's really, really good base life. Just so you know, phenomenal base life. Really good. Speed, 3,432. So this is a relatively fast monster. Most often than not, monsters suffer a low base speed simply due to having high base life. We see this in Oris, we see this in Nagursis, we see this with basically any tank that has a high life cap. But this one was blessed with 3,432. I think the only tank in the game that has a really high base speed, but has also a really high life stat is actually Count Flawless. Who's considered a deny for the most part, even though she only has like one deny skill. Like, it's a really strong deny skill. But the rest of her kit's just kind of life sustain. She's a really tanky, fast tank. With this monster in particular, he didn't suffer that fate. He's got a really good base speed. Not bad at all. This is his baby form and his adult form. They basically stopped making a teenage form. I don't know why, they just did. But this is their baby adult form. Really awesome design. I love the design. Gets the old Dib approval design mark. I really like it. It's really cool. I also like his kit. His kit's also it's really simple, but sometimes it's okay to be simple, my boys. But again, we'll get to that in a bit. Trait. Let's talk about the trait real quick. Immune to stun, mega freeze, regular, and exclusive possessions. Now, I don't know if they'll ever add on to this trait. If they add more control in the future, they might wind up doing that at the rate they're going with all these new fancy traits. And pretty much at some point, we're gonna have monsters that just block all the deny in the game. So, like we already have the artifacts, but you get my point. Basically, every single element will be able to block all the common deny, and you'll just see those on defense, and attacking is gonna be harder to win. But no, this is a really good trade. We only ever see this on exclusive stuff, and this is a monster that came out on an event. So in the future, this thing's gonna be sold for like 250 or 249. In the future, it wouldn't be a bad monster to invest in because it's immune to all the common deny in the game. This monster was solely designed, I do believe, to counter apparently he's a part of the monster he counters, Zyron. It's supposed to be a really good Zyron counter. And it is. It has a lot of good stuff to keep itself alive. It has a good base life, and it's immune to all of her stupid stuff. Zyron really, really excels in all the common deny in the game because she does 2 random AoE effects. She also is able to apply Mega Stunning with that, and it's really, 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 really busted. It's a really strong unit. And he's really good at countering that because, hey, he's immune to everything. So if you run this, if you run Warthog, I believe, or any other monster that has immune control, you can pretty much I think you can pretty much go around killing a bunch of Zyron defenses because you don't care what she does because she can't deny you. Worst case scenario, like the worst thing she could possibly do, I'd probably say at that point, is just drain your stamina. And he does have things that counteract that too. Books. He is in Good Legions, Families, and Spirits. Sadly, 2 of his 3 books are also home to his arch nemesis. That be Charmless. As we take a look here, take a gander, if you will, at the Families book, Charmless is actually in it. I don't know who he's related to, but he's in the family book. Maybe it's like Bella Ball and all that stuff. But because it says in his bio with all that, but you don't ever see anyone else in there. I don't really know why they put Prince Charmless in the families, but it's always something everyone's just kind of confused about because no one really knows who he relates to. If anything, it only hints to like Bella Ball, but Bella Ball herself isn't in here yet. But as you can see here, Prince Charmless in Families, and I think he's in Good Legions too. Charmless is... Yep, right here. So 2 of his 3 books is his worst nightmare ever. It's his worst matchup, and he's stuck with 2 books with them. Two books. That's really, really huge. That does hurt his playability. It hurts it so much. It hurts it so unbelievably much. Simply due to the nature of multi-attacking, like multi-turn physical attackers like Voltaic, well, I don't know why I just said physical attackers. I guess I've been playing too much DX2. But any extra turn damage dealers that have a type advantage over a specific element, like let's say water tanks, for example. Water tanks have always been kind of laughed at because Voltaic exists. I think the only one that could possibly live in Onslaught is Cryotan. But that's only if he sets up first, and he doesn't usually get first punch, so... yeah, it's just kind of a laughed about thing. And since Charmless is pretty much the upgraded Voltaic, you can imagine magic tanks really, really non-existent at that point. It's been a while since we've actually had a magic tank. When was the last time we've actually had a magic tank? We've had a magic tank since... I'd probably say Bowtie. Bowtie's... in terms of... let's see here. Let's say usable tanks. Let's just put in terms of usable tanks. I guess Shannara's Bodyguard. Because Morgan's a damage dealer. Ben says doesn't really have a trait. I mean, you can use a move that gives him a trait. But really, really. We're just going to use Shannara's Bodyguard. In terms of a competitive view aspect, this would be our last tank. I don't think Devastator was a tank. I think he was damage too. But this would be our latest magic tank. And it's a shame that Charmless exists because it just kind of destroys him being able to sponge stuff if the enemy does decide to bring him. He does hold the staff and the shield relic set up, so if you have a leveled up tenacity shield, and the draining staff. If the Charmless goes before the support on the enemy team, you will for sure lose the the first charge if you fail to deny, or like you don't go before the enemy denier, or the if you fail to deny the support and the support winds up doing a scale and then procking your staff. It's important that both of these charges do proc on charmless hits because it one, it increases your survivability, and two, it just means you won't lose Gelotron right away. But you have to level up those relics first. So I highly recommend the revenge, not the revenge. Is it the revenge staff? Yeah, I think it is. It's the gold one that procs on hit. Whenever you get hit, it drains the enemy stamina, and the tenacity shield. If you don't have tenacities, then I think there's a healing shield that has a really low proc. It might not be all that good. So probably friendship, even though that's it's better than nothing, I guess. But if you have tenacity, by all means, give it to this thing. If you put it on defense with the Rainbow Room build. Release Natber. Release Natber. Removes all negative stats effects and gives 100% life back and stamina to itself. Removes 100% stamina from all enemies. Gives an extra turn to itself. So this is an AoE stamina drain, which gives him all of his life back and stamina back and an extra turn. This ult, as far as I'm concerned, is phenomenal because it lets you pretty much. If you get this turn one, that's just ridiculous. It gives you a full life reset, and it sets you up so your enemy can't really do anything against you. Like, they can't follow up on that, which is really, really nice. This lets you be able to one lifesteal twice. He actually has two lifesteal skills, I believe, at least two major ones you'll be running. So you'll be able to get quite a bit of life back, even though you don't really need it anymore because, hey, you're at 100% life already. You already got all your life back. I can see this as a really trolly ult in terms of defense comps and offensive too. Simply due to the fact, one orange is already bothersome, but if the Gelotron actually gets this, it can pretty much end pretty quickly. This skill is really strong. It gives him all of his life back, stamina back. That's huge. Imagine all your work and it's just gone, and now you're even in a worse spot. Not just because his life reset and stamina reset, but you have no stamina to do anything. So this is a pretty good. I will say this is a pretty good ult if you get it near the end of the fight, where the enemy's relics are procced all the way. That would be really good. That's like the best case scenario. But yeah, that's it. What any skills and skill groups one? None in particular. We'll get back to this if there is anything particular that I'd recommend, but for right now we'll go for skill groups too. Pinwheel Cut. This deals heavy special damage and applies a random torture effect to one enemy. This requires a cooldown of 1 turn, and it's a 60 damage, 25 stamina skill. Pretty good. Pretty self-explanatory. I'd run this because of its low cooldownage. I think this was his lowest cooldown, in all honesty. I think that was the scenario here. So yeah, I'd say I'd run it. Stamina Attraction. This applies heavy magic damage to one enemy, and it gives stamina regen along with it. It's a 50 damage skill, magic based. Pretty good in terms of countering your stamina issues, but then again, you can just run a stamina regen staff, especially if you have the legendary one, and you don't have to worry about it. So I will say if you have that, you don't really need to run the skill. If not, do by all means run it. It's also a really good Timuron damage because it's only on a 1-turn cooldown, and it's magic based, and you're kind of a damage dealer. So I would say cooldown's activation would be your biggest botheration with this monster, because I do remember skill groups 3 having quite a bit of a cooldown issue. So skill groups 2, this is the final skill in skill groups 2. This is Essence Seal. This is a 55 damage skill on a 2-turn cooldown, 16 stamina, and you get all your life back. This is 100% life steal, not 50%, 100%. So if you have double damage on you get my point. Or you could see where this is going. 100% life steal has always been good. Check out your boy Heyman. That's his signature thing. 100% life steal on a 1-turn cooldown has always been really good. I wish this was on a 1-turn cooldown, because then that would be amazing. It's like the best thing for him. Like, the best thing with Heyman, or it's just a good example of a monster. When you have like a 1 turn cooldown lifesteal, like with a good base scaling, it's pretty good. You can live quite a bit, and this guy has like 2. I'd run this. This is something I'd run. Increases sustainability, slight chance of living through more stuff based on the higher your damage is. So if you're adding really really high end damage runes, especially 2, you can get a good chunk of life back, at least 30k. With given its pace power, I think you could do at least maybe 20, 25. Yeah, I mean, in terms of just like let's say low end base damage. Maybe. I guess it depends on what you rank it up to too. But you get a pretty good chunk without the boost. But if you do boost your monster, like damage boost, double damage, you can see pretty good returns on it. Pinwheel, Pinwheel Whirlwind. That's a mouthful. Deals very heavy special damage to all enemies. Applies a torture effect to all enemies. Oh, is this the? I wasn't really in depth with how good this is. So old Gelotron here really, really excels in DOT damage. I will say he's the best DOT damage dealer in the entire game. One, because this is on a 1 turn cooldown. This is on a 2 turn cooldown. And they're all random. The reason why random DOTs is really, really good is basically, let's say you're fighting against a monster that was immune to specifically burns. Well, you're running a skill that, while it does have a chance to burn, you also have the chance to poison, to bleed. It's not a set DOT. Random DOTs is really really good because you'll probably at some point, unless you're just really horrible luck there, you'll always have a DOT on someone, and if you're lucky, you'll proc 2 different kinds of DOTs. Like, you won't land the thing that they're immune to, and that's really strong. And so at some point, if you can like reduce the cooldown on your monster skills, like a Bowtie for example, or Chimera, and reset the cooldown on this Pinwheel Whirlwind, you can stack up DOTs pretty good quick and just win game. It's amazing. It's really really good. I will say the only time the skill isn't good is when monsters that have double traits and that have immunities, like Charmless, for example, is immune to poison. Let's say if you just keep landing poison, well, that doesn't really do you any good. So the only time this skill is ever really bad is if you landed on something that it's immune to, which there aren't that many monsters in the game at the time of this recording this video that have double immunities and or triple immunities to DOTs. I mean, like, there's just like a handful of them that are immune to DOTs. Specifically abominations, some nemesis monsters, and I think some light, but no, that's not. I don't think there's a light monster that's immune to DOTs. But you get my gist. You get my thing. There's not many monsters that are like Charmless, for example, with immunity to DOTs. For fire in particular, I'd say in terms of the fire category, there is one. The Inheritor, I do believe, is immune to burning and ignition. Yeah, I think he's burned to burning and ignition. So that's neat and dandy. But you get my point. This is really good. These skills are really really good because random DOTs are awesome. Stamina Repeller. This is a very heavy magic damage. It removes 35% of stamina to one enemy. I don't think this skill is all that good because it doesn't remove 50%. Well, one, it's not even 50%, and 2, it's just not good. It's plain and simple. It's not that good. For the cost of like another skill which are there's a lot of good skills to run on this. I don't think you need the 35%. 35% is just too low of a percent trade to use it for. I just wouldn't run it. Even if it's against like a time you run fight, I'd still use like stamina attraction, even though it's 5 less damage. I'd still run that. 1, because it's a 1 less cooldown, and 2, you get stamina regen. I find that more beneficial than just taking 35%. Every 2 swings. It also has a relative. If it had like no cooldown, okay, that would be really good. A spammable 35% damage drain. I'd take that. That'd be pretty useful. It's not spammable though. It's 2 turn cooldown, and it's only running at 55. It's not high base. It's not too high of a base worth running at that point. Like with the thing is, like shields for example. Some shield moves have really low base scaling, or some skills have really high shield scaling, but the damage is low. That's a lot of the thing. If it has a really good shield base scaling, the damage is going to obviously be really low, because you're more so using it for utility. And if you have a really, really high end damage scale, but it gets a really low end shield scaling, that's just the logic of it. With this, you get the basic 55 damage, but you're only getting 35 of the stamina drain. It's not too good of a trade. This isn't. Major Essence Steel. This is a massive special damage to one enemy. Gains as much life as damage dealt. This is a 70 damage base skill. It's on a 3-turn cooldown though. That's the most taxing thing. That only has 13 stamina too. His stamina costs are really low. This thing doesn't really take all too much stamina to do any of his skills, which is amazing. So if you do run in with stamina regen staffs, or just a party that regen stamina, you're always moving with the unit. There's never a time he's not doing anything. Alright, so what's the kit, Dib? What's the must run skills? Totally run Major Essence Steel, because again, the more damage you do, the more life you get in return from the skill. If anything with life is steel, obviously the more damage you deal, the more you get back. 70 damage is a lot of damage. That's ultimate damage. That's the ultimate damage range. That's ridiculous. So I'd recommend Major Essence Steel. I'd run Pinwheel Whirlwind. Really good. Random DOTs. Sounds good. Sounds spicy. I'd run Pinwheel Cut. And I guess it depends where I would be at the game at the moment. In terms of relics, I think the last skill is really just what do you have, because running a spammable skill might not also be a bad idea either. Simply for because I guess it depends. Like if you're fighting Timyrons all the time, or at least people are like, I think it depends on what you're fighting. Look at what you're fighting. If you're fighting a lot of monsters that are activating your cooldowns, maybe running a spammable skill like Peace Manager if you're fighting a mechanical war wouldn't be a bad idea. Or because yeah, at this point, if you do wind up running stamina like Attraction, Pinwheel Cut, Pinwheel Whirlwind, and Major Essence Steel, you are susceptible for a turn of cooldown. You're not moving for a turn, so you're just pretty much denied at that point. And or like it depends. I guess it depends on the move order too. If it's the support, you're only going to be denied for a turn, because if Gelotron moves after the enemy support, then you're only down for 1 turn. However, if you if you get cooldowns activated by a fast monster, and your Gelotrons go, you're gonna be down for 2, because you gotta wait a turn for your cooldowns. With the thing, that's just how logic works. That's how the turn order, that's how it works. Like if you're running a monster with all low base cooldowns, like a 1 turn as being your lowest cooldown, depending on the turn order, it could be from a turn, just pretty much like being frozen or stunned, to you're mega stunned at that point. You're waiting 2 turns to get things done. Which can matter in a fight. I think that matters. I now just kind of realize you're not running the Essence Steel. I did say run Pinwheel Cut, Pinwheel Whirlwind, and Major Steel Essence. So maybe I guess it's a debate whether or not to run Essence Steel or Stamina Attraction. Okay, I think it depends on what the relics. Again, if you're running Stamina Regen relics over like Stamina Draining relics, then you don't really need the Stamina Regen. Just go with Essence Steel just for more life steal. I think that's pretty much it in terms of choices, or just like what you have. Again, it's all just dependent on what you have. So what do I think of this monster overall? I think it's really good, or at least it's not a bad monster. But straight up the bat, this is not a bad monster. It's just a monster who has a lot of bad matchups now. It's just one of those monsters that seems to have like the worst matchup of all time, and it's stuck in two books with him. Like two out of his three wars, like whatever you can use this thing, you can bring a Charmless. That's so incredibly huge, and it just ruins the tanking of the monster. That doesn't mean he doesn't have any really good matchups though. Again, he's really good against Zion or anything that relies on just solid deny. Like just straight up possessing or freezing or stunning, mega stunning, you name it. It's a really good matchup in those fights, and that's really common in this game. It's like a blessing and a curse. He's really good with all of the common stuff in the game, but at the same time he's weak to something really common in the game at the point of this meta, and that's just Charmless. Everyone's running Charmless, and Charmless is just destroying everything as is anyway. Like even if you're weak to it. So it's really hard to be a magic tank in this current meta with that huge thing walking around with that huge giant beast that is Charmless, aka Skillless, roaming in two of his three books. That's just not a good opportunity for it. Hey, even if you could get like the Spirits book, if there's a chance you would get like uh, a nature war, and that's just that's just unfortunate. So what's the best rune build for it? That's really debatable. Um, Most people would say go for the rainbow rune build anyway, because this gives him, like with anything that's immune to crowd control, like Flameuron for example. Most people run either two strengths and a life rune or the rainbow rune build with a strength, life, and speed. You run the speeds just so you don't get double turned. That's really just why you do it. Most people don't even care about it and just run the double damage and life rune to give it more sustain, and you run like a stamina regen relic so you get the turn to move. I think it's just depending on what you're dealing with. What like I will say run it one way for a while. If you want to run it Rainbow Rune, try that for a while. If you find yourself losing more fights often than not, specifically to Charmless matchups, just run two speeds and a Strength Rune, like a really good one. Rank it up. I will say rank the higher if you rank this up to 3, it'll run better. I think if you just have it at 100, it won't do you much good. You gotta rank it up a little bit, at least to 3. I would say 2 or 3. 2 being the least effective. 3, I'd say like pretty average. If you rank it up all the way, oh god, this would be a terrifying thing to fight at rank 3. I think this is might be one of the stronger things to put on defense if it's maxed out. 3 being again, it'd run pretty smoothly. 5 if you max it out all the way, it'll do pretty good. But for the most part, I think you ought to run 2 speeds in a strength rune, just for the chance to steal a coin, like just to take someone's coin with the major essence steal, and you just go before Charmless. The nice thing with these monsters is they can't be denied. At least there's limited ways to deny monsters immune to crowd control effects. So you're really just taking that opportunity to ensure the enemy just loses a coin, because they couldn't really control Gelotron, as far as I'm concerned. On the condition you don't really get cooldowns activated, he'll probably wind up doing either an AoE skill and or the single target 70 damage lifesteal skill, and just kind of take a coin or just put your enemies in a really bad spot because they have a random DOT on them at the moment. Again, the higher this monster is in terms of rank, and the higher that strength rune, that single strength rune, in terms of a 2 speed and strength comp, rune build comp, you'll perform better. You could also run the stereotypical 2 damage and a speed. Again, really with the speed, you're not really, it's not there for deny, because again you're not worried about being denied. You're immune to all as far as I'm concerned, you're immune to all common deny in the game. You're really using it just so you're not buried in speed. You don't want the enemy stacking DOTs or damage on you. That's never really a good thing. But again, if you're all set with like relics and stuff, like your relics are maxed and your runes are pretty good, you could go for a 2 damage and a life rune. See how that does you. But for the most part, I think two speeds and a strength rune might do you good in terms of universal matchups against charmless fights. I'm gonna say if you can avoid bringing him to charmless fights, because again, it's his worst matchup. But if you have to, in order to face Zyron comps, it's this thing you gotta do. Just kill charmless first, then at that point, because I'm assuming at that point you bringing like the other two monsters aren't afraid of Zyron to begin with. Uh, with traits wise, what have you. You're probably running War Masters like Elvira, for example. Just kind of build around that. If you don't have to worry about Elvira, not Elvira, Zyron ever, just kill the Charmless. Prioritize Charmless first, and then you just win for there. You will at least be able to get a coin, because again, Zyron can't do much to this thing. This whole thing was designed to counter Zyron. That's the purpose of this monster. I think he's pretty good at with a lot of good common matchups in the game, except Charmless. That's his worst matchup. Again, it's a really common matchup too. A monster's performance like any character or any monster unit or whatever have you that has a really common weakness in the game is kind of hinders its performance. For example, let's say Thetis, all right, or Hydratilla. Let's say Hydratilla. A lot of people think Hydratilla doesn't have really any good matchup in the game. That's not entirely true. He's really, really good in Thetis fights, and he's really, really good in Cryotan fights. He's not in terms of denying Cryotan. Like he doesn't really deny Cryotan. However, he does prevent Cryotan from Mega Freezing everyone, because his buff actually gives you Mega Freeze immunity. I've tried this a few times, and it does actually do that. He himself is also immune to Mega Freeze. Like Hydratilla is also immune to Mega Freeze. They're really common matchups too. Like the more common matchups on defenses the monster has, the more the value goes up. The more versatility and playability you can do with it. I can imagine in terms of defense comps with good legions and families, you'll see a lot of Cryotans, and you'll see a lot of... Oh, in terms of good legions, let's pull up good legions real quick. I imagine Charmless for the most part for good legions. This is good legions, right? Good legions. Common matchups in good legions. You might find some Yamadas. You might find some Charmless Talika. I occasionally see the Volt. Oh, the Voltix. That's interesting. That's actually interesting. Volt's not actually in good legions. I don't know why in that one, but he's not. You might see. Maybe some light supports like Kokora. So for him, in terms of good legions, if you don't see a Charmless, you might actually just wind up seeing a support or a denier, just based on what I'm seeing here. So those are actually really good. As long as you're not using against a Charmless fight, I think you have a really good matchup potential. But a lot of people are just shoving Charmless on defense nowadays. So I'll say use him in situations where they aren't actually doing it, because then you'll have a better chance of winning. Overall, phenomenal monster that requires you to really look to see what you're fighting, like what's the most common matchups in terms of the wars that it's in, to go for the rune build from there, like the downright the best build for it. Experiment with it, see how the meta changes, and then build your rune set from there. Personally, just based on what I'm saying, I think 2 speeds and a strength rune is just a must in terms of dealing with Charmless. If you're not too concerned about the Charmless matchup, just run the I was gonna say 2 damage and a life rune, because again, he's not bothered by pretty much all the he's immune to all the common deny in the game. The only thing you have to worry about is cooldowns activated. If you don't want to take too much DOT damage, you could also just build him 2 damage and a speed. That's also a thing too. So in terms of a final verdict, I'd say either the stereotypical damage build of 2 damage and a speed, or I would say damage and 2 speed, just for coin security. Again, with the speed, it's not about the worrying about being denied. Again, you're not worried about being denied. The speed's there just to go before other monsters, so you can do some like high quality damage. possibly take a coin from any squishy or underranked monster that the enemy is possibly running to try and deal with Gelotron. Because again, Gelotron excels in deny reliant situations. As far as I'm concerned, denying is one of the most important things in the game. So it thrives on that aspect. And you have a good chance to knock something out with your 70 damage special base skill, or like applying a DOT and living long enough for the enemy to either die from all the units die from that, or at least a unit or two. Overall, really good unit with just a really horrible, like, really common matchup nowadays. If Charmless didn't exist, I'd say this is one of the best monsters of all time. Because this monster doesn't really, again, it doesn't really care about any of the deny in the game, and it can regen stamina, has built-in stamina regen. So the only thing that bothers it at this point is cooldowns activated, and it has its ult too. It has a phenomenal ult. It's really good, but it just has a really ugly weakness. Like it's got an Achilles heel. It's like the Ultimate Warrior, only like you have a really terrible weak knee there. You'll be destroyed if they take the time to aim for that with Charmless. But that's about it with this monster overall. It's a very dib monster. I love the design for this monster. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this guide. Let me know if there's any more comments, questions in the comment section below. Obviously, in the comments, you obviously comment in the comments. But let me know if there's any questions or your thoughts on this guide. I'm Did the Awesome. I'll catch you guys later.